As I said, I just want to thank everyone who RSVP'd and has come to our event tonight or will be watching it on the recording. We're grateful that you've taken time to be part of our Real community. My name is Callie Turk, and I am one of the co-founders of Real. I'm joined here tonight by Yael Valek, who is my fellow co-founder, and Abby Kerrigan, who is our Real partner, and we just couldn't be happier that you're here. We're going to go through just a few slides on Real, and then we're going to jump into our main speaker. Next, Yael. 7:03. I'm going to have more people coming in. We'll make sure everybody gets in. So in case you're here and you've never been to any of our past events or you're not familiar with Real, we just wanted to share our mission and vision. We are a nonprofit based in Silicon Valley, and we really are focused on helping twice exceptional students thrive in school. And we're doing that by really working with parents and educators to raise their awareness about these very unique learners and understand some practical research-based strategies to help them with their needs. We're really working to build bridges between educators and parents through resources and workshops and programs and tools and speakers just like this tonight. Probably most of you are familiar with what we mean by twice exceptional, but just in case this is a term that is new to you, twice exceptional students are students who have very distinguishing strengths. They have high abilities or potential in one or more areas. It could be an academic area, an intellectual area, creativity, or leadership. And they also have complex challenges. So they might have a specific learning disability like dyslexia, which we'll be talking about tonight, or ADHD, or general anxiety, or autism. And it's really that combination of that high ability and that challenge area that makes them what we call a green learner, where they are always that combination, and we want to help them thrive in all kinds of situations. We have a lot of resources on our website and invite you all to go there if you have any additional questions. This is an example from our website, and you can see that our 2E topic tool is a place where you can navigate our resources based on a topic that you might be interested in. We have a lot of events coming up. You're here tonight for our February 1st event, and this is our kickoff of our 2023 event series. On February 13th, we're going to have a lunchtime chat about living and loving 2E just in time for Valentine's Day. How do you manage relationships in your neurodivergent family? On March 12th, we're going to kick off Neurodiversity Celebration Week by featuring the awesome duo from Autism Level Up, talking about how we can support our neurodivergent children in what they like to call useful reality. Then on April 24th, we will host another lunchtime chat on being mindful and tools to understand and manage your own anxiety so that you can self-regulate and show up for your kids. And then on May 9th, we're going to be talking with Dr. Tasha Oswald of Open Doors Therapy about how we can think about how do we really celebrate our 2E child when there are a lot of things that are really hard about parenting? So we're going to be talking about that dual reality. And then we always host our bi-monthly support groups with Parents Helping Parents. So our next one of those is March 2nd, and then again, May 4th. We have a lot of other resources and support. We have a private Google group if you'd like to join a private community to ask questions and get answers. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and you can see all of our event recordings on YouTube. And that's where we will be posting this event recording in the coming days. We offer workshops. I'm not going to go into this a great deal, but you can learn more about this on our website if you think that things that we offer would be helpful for parents or educators at your school, whether it's introducing them to 2E, understanding strength-based strategies, talking about creativity, and all kinds of things. We just cover all kinds of topics, and we'd love to come and speak with your community. And last but not least, we are still celebrating the fact that we became a nonprofit in the middle of last year. This was a long journey for us, and it was super exciting. And we really want to share that with our community and let you know that if it this is a program that you find useful, if you appreciate that we are offering these kinds of programs for free and you would like them to continue to be offered for free so that we want everyone to be able to join them, even those who wouldn't be able to afford if we were charging a fee, we would really appreciate your support so that we can kind of keep the Zoom lights on and keep our work going. We'll put the link to our donation in the chat. There's no obligation to donate, but if you feel so called to do, please consider that donation.
So without further ado, I'd like to introduce tonight's speaker, Gil Gershoni. Hi, Gil.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here.
Gil Gershoni is the founder and creative director of Gershoni Creative in San Francisco and Dallas. For more than 25 years, Gil has worked with clients like Google, Apple, Spotify, Deloitte, Patrón, San Francisco Art Institute, BBC, and Nike. Gil has dyslexia, is an advocate for neurodiversity, and regularly speaks on neurodiversity's influence on design thinking. His mission is to educate people about dyslexia, moving from more traditional views of dyslexia as a debilitating mental limitation to what Gil calls a hyperability. Gil has presented at South by Southwest, Whitney Biennial, and Sundance Film Festival, engaged students from UC Berkeley Engineering Program, California College of the Arts, and Vancouver Institute of Media Arts on the topics of dyslexia and neurodiversity. Executive produced Dyslexic Dictionary, an exhibit which we went to, which was amazing in San Francisco, featuring dyslexic artists virtually reinterpreting words, phrases, or ideas through the lens of their dyslexia. He has been profiled in the 2020 book, The Bigger Picture with Amazing Dyslexics and the Jobs They Do. He's written numerous Medium posts on the benefits of dyslexia and neurodiversity, and he hosts salons with dyslexic thought leaders across industries. He is currently hosting the Dyslexic Design Thinking podcast, which explores the intersection of dyslexia and creativity with guests from a wide range of industries. He is producing the Dear Dyslexia postcard project, which we will post in the chat, which invites students from around the world to continue the work of Dyslexic Dictionary by visually redefining dyslexia using their personal experience as a guide. He is also producing Dyslexia Beautiful Minds, part of the Inside Out public art project, displaying portraits of 100 dyslexic in the heart of San Francisco. We're so excited to have him here tonight. Gil, would you like to take over the slides or should I keep going?
Sure, you can keep going. Let's go to the next one. So hi, everybody. I'm so delighted to be here. I was looking forward all day to be and meeting you all and kind of getting into a good discussion about how do we change the narrative and the perceptions of dyslexia. I wanted to start by kind of showing you a little bit of the foundation, so then we can jump off of it into sort of conversation and then question and answer from everybody. You know, most people that are not dyslexic and even dyslexic think that dyslexia is a single mindset or a single perspective or a single learning disability. And I think it's important to realize that when you're saying dyslexia, you're actually talking about many different modalities. And when you look at all the amazing dyslexic around the world that change our perceptions, you start to ask yourself, why is this a disability? And why are we looking at what we can do versus what we can do? So let's get to the next one. One of the things that most people think about dyslexia is, oh, isn't that the kind of thing that you can read and you flip letters? And most of you that are not dyslexic, when you look at the word cat on the left of the screen, the first thing that you can visualize in your head is the image of the cat on the right. Right? It's very easy. You barely even read it. It just sort of jumps into your mind and there's a cat. Let's go to the next one. You know, that's more or less what happens. And I know a lot of people love infographics. So we rendered one for you guys just to kind of like see how that sort of cognitive observation from the subject and the object and the interpretation of it goes. If you go to the next slide, you know, when I look at CAT, go to the next one. I see every letter from every perspective through and above. You know, I see the C, I see the inside of the T, I see the A, I see it upside down, I see it in 3D, all at the same time. And no matter which way I spin it, I never see a cat. And most people say, wow, that's exactly what the learning disability is. Let's go to the next one. But you take the same disability and apply it into just about any other problem solving. For example, you take the same cat and you put it in the bag. And in my mind, I can, in a blink of an eye, I can spin the bag inside it out. I can spin the cat, and whatever which way I do it, I can tell you it's a cat. If you jump to the next one, so it's the same exact negotiation of linear subjects or linear objects that really allows you to think of the learning disability and move it into the hyperability. Let's go to the next slide. So what is dyslexia really? So I figured that, when you look at the dictionary definition of dyslexia, they're really telling you what you can't do. There's not a lot of other definitions of other things in the world that actually talks about what it's not versus what it is. Forward to the next one. So dyslexia is the ability to see the world from multiple perspectives, all at the same time, and solve problems in unique ways. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. So that brought me to sort of start to think about, if dyslexia is a gift of seeing through things, above things, below things, all at the same time, and as I am a designer and a thinker and a creative and an entrepreneur, I really realized that dyslexia, it's been one of my strengths as I do my work around the world. So I came up with the idea of Dyslexic Design Thinking. Let's forward it to the next one, please. So we'll talk a lot about what is Dyslexic Design Thinking today, less in the theoretical part, but how do we apply it to everyday exercises, practice, some of the challenges we having as adults, as children, and everybody in between. But I wanted to put a little bit some of the building blocks for you guys here. So it's divergent thinking, nonlinear ideation, to generate unexpected ideas, and let's go to the next one. It's rooted in my belief that dyslexia is a hyperability, that it's truly a gift, that 99% of everything I do is dyslexic. Frankly, everything I do is through the lens of dyslexia. But most of us tend to think about it as the learning disability that it is, and not the other 99.9% of everything else we do that is still through the lens and through the gift of dyslexia. It helped me to think and create and to relate to one another. And as I learn how to regulate my dyslexia and I learn how to work with other non-dyslexic to actually solve problems, bring ideas and collaborate, I realize that actually there is a beautiful dance that can happen between dyslexic and the gift of it and non-dyslexic as we work together to change the world. So I would love to invite you all today and in the future to check out all the programs we have. Some exhibitions, podcasts, Dyslexic Design Thinking, salons, and really share some of what you guys are doing, and follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn, and follow our Medium article, and let me know what you think and how that experiences work for you, and let's jump into the conversation.
Right. Great. So excited to have you here, Gil. So let's talk a little bit more about, how you developed all of this. And you talked a little bit about it in that first introduction, but when did you first start to notice that you saw the world differently, like that you saw Kat that different way than everybody else or people around you?
When you don't know you're different, you don't know you see differently. That's the beautiful about being a child, right? Until you told me that I couldn't do something, I was a vibrant, happy, creative, outside the box kid, and I followed my own interests and my own passions. And as soon as I started going to school, I realized that there's so much that I can't do like others. And no matter how much I tried to overcome it and change it and to be linear, I couldn't, it's not the kind of thing that you can try harder to do in order to overcome it, I always looked at the world, from every perspective. I remember when I was a little kid, everybody in my family knew that if they lost a key, a bowl, a bat, they would just ask me, because my photographic memory, my dyslexic mind will be able to sort of spot it in the house. Say, oh, Mom, your keys are underneath the couch. And she was, be like, how do you, you're 6 years old. How did you know? Because I brushed against it visually, and seeing everything at once, I was able to sort of exactly know where it is, As I got older and I realized that it's very difficult for me to read and write, I found that there's other ways that I express myself that was very different than my classmates and my colleagues at college and beyond, when I got to be more in my professional world. So for me, it was really important, and I think that was credit to my parents. It was like to really sort of follow what gave me joy, to fill my cup with things that I was really good at. I really thrived at, and I think that even though I couldn't read and write easily, they knew how hard I tried, and they never for 1 minute says, oh, he's lazy, he's stupid, even though some of the teachers and some of the community kind of label me that way. But they always believed that, I was immensely gifted. I remember when I was like second grade or something like that, my mom said, you are the smartest, you were so, you're so creative. And I says, Mom, every mom says it to her child. Every mom says that, and she's like, well, that's fair. And I remember her, and she tells the story these days, she kind of teared up, and sort of her heart sort of was sad for it. She's like, you know what, let's take you and get you tested and get your IQ tested. And she explained to me what IQ testing was. And she said, I'm going to send you in by yourself. A third party is going to sort of evaluate you, and they're going to sort of let you know where you sort of fall on the spectrum, and I went and did that. And afterwards, the person called her back in and says, he is below average in reading and writing, but in every other cognitive sort of measurement, he absolutely exceeds his age group and beyond. And I think that was a really pivotal moment at such a young age, to know that my mom saw the potential, and she gave me the confidence earlier on to still work hard and overcome and struggle with some of these linear thinking, but also feed my dyslexia, help me, play and draw and make things that really gave me a lot of strength,
It sounds like your mom was one of your, major supporters throughout your life. Do you have other adults that you can credit for helping you along the way?
Yes, obviously my mom, my family, my dad, grandparents and things like that learn over time that, it's not about trying harder. It's just that I see the world differently. And they themselves learn over time that actually part of the challenge that a young person with dyslexia has is the way they are observed by their near and dear community. And as I got older and went through sort of, high school, I found other teachers that really understood what dyslexia was and really supported the gift of my dyslexia and celebrated it and gave me other ways to communicate and to express myself. As I got older and I went to university, I learned that actually my dyslexia was my superpower, because I was able to communicate and create ideas and solve problems in ways that some of my colleagues couldn't do exactly the same way. And I learned that instead of trying to fix my dyslexia and not be dyslexic and try to fit like into a linear world, I learned that I need to slow down my dyslexia in certain circumstances in order to be able to learn in more traditional ways. But also I fed my dyslexia. So I was so curious always to sort of learn in different ways. I used to sit in university in classes that I didn't even was belonged to, just because I wanted to hear lectures. So I just sort of got really immersed in sort of looking at the world from different perspectives. And to your questions, found professors and others that sort of really just supported that,
So it sounds like it was in college when you really started to have a mind shift about dyslexia, when you started to think of it as a gift. Is that right? Or was it even earlier?
I think that every day I go through it. I don't think that the gift of it continued to evolve as I continued to evolve as a person. So I think that it was a child, I didn't know that there was some struggles, and then I sort of faced them. And then I spend a lot of time through my parents to sort of feed my dyslexia and my talents. So there was different places to sort of fill my cup. But as I got older, different aspects of it unfolded. And the more I got comfortable with what I can and can't do, and spoke it to to my community, my professors, my teachers, and I felt okay with it, then they actually supported it. So I think that it's an ever evolving process and it's a lifelong pursuit. But I did find that earlier on, I kind of embraced it and started to talk about it. And then as I got older, and really sort of start to think about it and find the different structures of what it is, I got more people involved in it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it sounds a lot like how Jamie Oliver talks about his dyslexia and ADHD. So it's just interesting, thinking about filling your cup and finding what you love and working on that. So it's interesting you showed that slide with all of the different people who are dyslexic, and they all have different talents and strengths. But if you could name a few, I don't know, overarching themes you might see for dyslexics, what are some of those things that dyslexics are uniquely good at?
Yeah, a lot of us look at the world through the lens of, again, like I said, there's different types of dyslexic, and just put it out there. I'm not an expert in dyslexia. I'm just dyslexic, and I can only speak through my lens of dyslexia and my experiences. So maybe your child, your other, if you're dyslexic as an adult, you see the world slightly differently. I've talked to a lot of dyslexic over the years from all different backgrounds, all different countries and occupations, and there is some commonalities. One of them is we tend to think very fast, and we think very fast because we jump over things. We look at things that are nonlinear and we find connections, and so that's something I found often. Now, when I didn't know I was doing it, it's not only disorienting for me, but also for my colleagues and my environment. When I start to realize what I'm doing, I was able to then start to name it, pace it and regulate it, and sort of use it more as a tool. Visualization and many aspects of visualization is something that's very often very common with dyslexics. I can see it in my mind's eye, fully rendered. So for me, if I think of an idea or if I think of a problem, I can actually visualize it, which means I don't have to visualize, I can see it in my mind's eye. So I think that's a very common trait for dyslexics. When it comes to language, because reading was so challenging, I found myself really honing in the meaning of language, and over time really hone my communications, so finding more specifically what I was trying to say and how I was trying to say it was almost, I don't know if it's for all dyslexic, but because I was overcompensating, that became a very strong aspect of part of my lens of dyslexia. A lot of empathy, because for me, I was always interested in how other people feel. How do I relate to them? So I learned over time to really be sensitive to others' feelings and emotions and behavior and be very sensitive to it, so I tend to bring a lot of that, and some of it is what they say, but often it's what they don't say. So reading body language, reading their intentions became something, as I became adult, a great tool through the lens of dyslexia. And there's so many different other gifts of dyslexia, but I think that these are few, and I'm sure we'll get more into some of them as we keep talking today. Yeah. So let's talk a bit more about dyslexic design thinking. You mentioned it's divergent thinking, nonlinear ideation, unexpected ideas. So tell us more about that, and tell us who can be a dyslexic design thinker. So I come from the world of design and design thinking, which is a phased approach to problem solving. And but the problem with that for dyslexic and other neurodiverse minds is that dyslexic thrives in the nonlinear. So for me, when I look at the idea of dyslexic design thinking, it's really based around the idea of divergent thinking and nonlinear ideation to help generate unexpected ideas. That is something that anybody can do, and it's really more embracing different types of modality, incorporating all mindsets, and bringing both the neurodivergent and the neurotypical minds to the conversation. It's really not really to do with only dyslexic. It's got to do with how do we look at problems? How do we suspend trying to solve them as long as we can, so we understand the environment and we understand what is going on for the human experience, and how do we find the various moments of those experiences in order to create a better solution and outcome together. Often when I work with my team at the agency, each one of us come from very different mindset. Some of us are traditional researchers, writers, strategists, project managers, designers, and we tend to suspend as long as we can to solve the problem. And it's very hard to do when you first start doing it, because here's the problem and you want to solve it. So everybody throws solutions. But often I say is, if you knew what the solution was, or if you knew what the problem was, then you would also most likely knew the solution. So we start with the idea that we don't actually know what the problem is. And we try to sort of look around and below and from every perspective to try to find is, where is the discord? Where is the moment in the relationship of what we're trying to do that is not flowing? And then we look at it from every perspective. And as we get closer and closer to figure out where it is, it becomes more apparent how do we actually address and solve those creative problems. So to your question, anybody can apply that methodology. It's something that we've done internally. I do it every day, both in my personal life and my commercial life. And it's an approach that really allows us to find the truth and the heart of the story, no matter where we go,
I love that. It's kind of, it's like your dyslexic design thinking is for everyone. And what we're trying to do is help all these poor people who don't have the gift of dyslexia figure out how to do what those of us with dyslexia do naturally, right?
Beautifully said. Exactly.
That's wonderful. Let's see. I think I'm going to move into some of the questions that people have submitted to us before the talk. So the first things that a bunch of people asked about were about classroom strategies. So the first question was, what are some ways that children can learn to embrace dyslexia, both at home, but also in the classroom?
Everybody's different. So I'll give some of my experience and some of what I've seen out there. And then we can, as we go, when we open it to the audience, we can get more specific about it. How do you embrace your dyslexia? Well, I am dyslexia through and through. Everything I do is dyslexic. There's no part of me that's not dyslexic and part of me that is dyslexic. I wake up dyslexic, I eat dyslexic, I see the world dyslexic, I dance dyslexic, I do everything through my lens of dyslexia. So the first thing to say is that there's no separation between me as a person and me as a person thinking nonlinearly. And I think that's a really important distinction, because if we say that everything I do is dyslexic, then what do I do in the classroom or at home that gives me contentment, that makes me feel whole? Some people loves to dance. Some people like to make things with their hands. Some people, loves to draw or do a mathematical equation. So the first question is, what do you like to do? And that's for an adult and a child. What do you like to do when nobody's watching that just makes you feel your whole self? That's always a beautiful place to start, because, often you find that when you pull on that string, then you just, then the whole gift of dyslexia starts to become apparent, and then how do you do more of that? How do you regulate it? So if you go to a classroom and you have to sort of calm it down, what do you do that makes you calm? Oh, I take deep breath. I feel myself through all of my senses. I look at my classroom and maybe something in the room reminds me to just become present. I practice those physical behaviors. So it's not, it's become second nature. You work on these tools from very early on, that as you grow and you develop them, you just become more of a fully embodied, conscious person about how you experience the world. Now, do you have to be dyslexic to do that? Well, no. I mean, that's what we're talking about, consciousness. That's when we're talking about being present. That's when we're talking about being compassionate. And so that's kind of part of the fundamental things that I do every day with my son. Sadly, he's not dyslexic, but the other day he was giving a performance and he was feeling a lot of anxiety about it. And I just said, take a deep breath, man. Slow down. Relax, bring his shoulders back. And I remember he was on stage and I can see him just becoming present with the space and the audience, move from your head to your body and from your heart. And when you practice that over time, you kind of become addicted to it because, whenever you take a deep breath into your own body, you just become here and now and everything becomes much easier, This stigmatizing dyslexia is something that I think is also very important as a tool in the classroom. Often when I was a child, everything that was done for me was emphasizing what I couldn't do. That is terrible for a child to always experience what they can do and then try to find ways to be cool with it with their peers, So for me is working with the students, working with the parents to find ways to learn in diverse ways, if you loves to draw or if you loves to do math, if you like, you can find so many ways to learn subjects through different modalities that makes you feel your strength first. And then you you start working on your differences, if you like to make art, make every letter out of clay or sing it or paint it or tell a story about it, right? Because it's all about how, teaching each other how to learn. So I don't know if I fully answer your question about tools in the classroom, but I think these are kind of tools that I apply myself, and I know that can be very helpful. But we can talk more about scenarios around specific issues that people may have.
Okay, no, I think that's great. And one of the questions someone asked, so for children who think through problems differently, so for instance, maybe they're during a test, they need to talk through each problem out loud, that helps them get, think through the problems. What's the best way for parents to explain these things to teachers so that the teachers are willing to make accommodations? If they can't meet you individually, what would you tell them to tell their teachers?
Well, it's really, again, depends on the class size and the teacher itself. But I think that it's important that first and foremost, I think, is that a teacher is here to teach the children how to learn. Subject and content comes and goes. So there's definitely things we have to learn and take from every lesson in class. But if you teach a child how to love to learn, then they would learn anything. So knowing that we all learn differently, some of us, dyslexic or not, love to stand, love to sit, loves to dance or read or whatever, which way we do it, is to give the child the space to do so. Knowing that the end result is not to accommodate their disability, but to enhance their superpowers in order to become a better student. So if I was to talk to a teacher and say, I know my son or daughter loves to or needs some more time or wants to make it out of a different mediums or material, is to sort of have a dialogue about it's this is a way to bring the students to be to engage with the curriculum and the subject matter. My mom back in the day, this before phone, the phones as we know them today, and before audibles and all, she used to record most of the subject into a cassette tape, and I used to listen to it. These days, we're obviously dyslexic, there's so much more awareness, and you have all these tools out there. So I think just kind of educating the children to be a little bit more open to different learning styles, and it goes a long way that way. Yeah.
Yeah, so both building empathy in the classroom with the other kids, but also with the teacher. That's great. Well said. Somebody asked, do you have any favorite apps, websites, or technology that you'd recommend for elementary or middle school students with dyslexia?
I love taking in content through audio. So I listen to, and as I've learned it, I've listened to podcasts, books, anything I can. I every email, everything that comes in, I make it basically read it to me, and I really learn to consume it that way and remember it. So I think any kind of audio tool to sort of turn things from text to audio is a great tool to get the content. I also love watching videos and you know, documentaries and things like that. I found that I really consume information really well that way, and I just don't forget it. You know, when I read it, I don't remember most of it. I remember some of it, and it's very patchy. But so a lot of that, so really is very, very helpful. You know, audio to text these days has such an evolution. I, you know, always speak and it always types it up. And my first thing is to say it's like it was, you know, dictated, and I apologize for being dyslexic. So if, you know, if an issue with my grammar or what it says, you work on it. I communicate what I can and to you, and then it's like, and people usually find it funny or whatever. They're very welcoming to it. There's a lot of tools out there, both linearly or more traditional tools as well as digital, that allows you to sort of create visual mind maps. And, you know, I still do it. I still take Post-its and whiteboards, and I try to kind of put things non-linearly and move them around because I love the physicality of it. Even at my studio with a lot of designers and others that are not dyslexic, we print everything out and we print it on the walls and we move it around, and everybody finds like, well, but we can do it on a computer. Yeah, but then you don't get to be in it. You don't get to feel it. So try to solve a math problem, you know, on a table or on the wall instead of just writing it down, you know. So these are kind of, I think, common, easy tools to apply to any learning differences that I think can really support different modalities. We were working on the Schwab Learning Center with some dyslexic students, both high school as well as Stanford. And one of the students there had a really hard time sitting still in the class, or even through Zoom during COVID and whatnot. And as we brought him to the center, we talked about what he loves to do. And he says, oh, I love to dance. So he just was doing, I said, get up, dance, and start to do your work on the board. And just by moving and doing his homework, the grade change, he loved the content, he loved the subject. So sometimes the tool are kind of more based on the individual person. And then you just think outside the box and you just find those tools and make them, apply them to any assignment, you know? So, yeah.
I love that. I want to meet that kid who wants to dance while learning. That's amazing. Okay, you know, there were several questions that involved anxiety and dyslexia, and one parent wrote, anxiety and a deficit focus together are overshadowing what could be my child's superpowers. How do I help them feel good about themselves and keep that light in their eyes? So how do you help these students, you know, find their own powers and think of themselves in a positive light?
Yeah, I mean, that's well, a couple of different approaches that I find helpful to that. It's a practice. Okay, so for me, it's not a single gesture. It's an ongoing approach to regulating, you know, what anxiety can be and where it is in the body. So having a relationship with it, knowing where it is, how does it feel, not running away or trying to fix it, at least make space for it. You know, talking about it and where and how and where does it come up has always been very helpful. As I said earlier, having a practice in breathing is a really simple and something that most of us were like, well, what do you mean practice in breathing? I breathe all day long. Yeah, but we're not conscious doing it. So I tend to do yoga and I tend to meditate, and it's something over the years that I developed that really is helpful. I got, you know, my team at the agency to do some of that work. And it's very simple, you know, just take deep breath, you relax, you embrace it. And before you know it, it sort of starts to, you know, softens and becomes something that's much more manageable. And the more you practice, the better you get at it. So you're having a relationship with it. You're having the relationship with your dyslexia. You're able to sort of know that certain things triggers it and certain things become too loud. And then you just sort of find ways to start to regulate it, you know. Dyslexia is the way your mind and your body reacts to certain circumstances, and your emotional guiding system is what telling you that, you know, it doesn't feel good to be called out or to be labeled with a disability. And so you start to sort of figure out, how do I go toward things that make me feel better, and how do I regulate my feelings around it. Different ages, different techniques for it, but you're really trying to sort of find a way to not try to get over it, but just embrace it. That's some stuff that really has been helpful to me over the years, and I know it's with practice it just makes it a little easier over time.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned in there something that just leads up to the next question. Someone asked if there are different techniques for embracing and feeling positive about your dyslexia that you would use with elementary school kids versus if you're approaching a child in high school who needs to work through these sorts of issues.
During the Dyslexia Dictionary exhibit, we had many schools come through and hundreds of kids. And I can really sense their energy, right? Like together as a group, all of them were dyslexic. So they would get super ramped up. And everybody was getting on top of each other and wanted to sort of come to and touch the art and talk about it. And everybody had a question. And especially the little ones, first grade, were just so enthusiastic. And as the sort of guiding them through it and working with them, the first thing, I would say to them is, everybody look over here. And everybody together take a deep breath, as big as you can, and stretch your body and reach up and feel your feet. And then on 3, everybody go quiet, and it's, who doesn't want to do it? I mean, it was just so much fun, and you do it 2 or 3 times with them. And all of a sudden, everybody's sort of so much more relaxed, and it's not a thing, it's, you just embrace the play of it. And it just brings the energy down and grounds everybody and makes it very easy to sort of regulate the amount of energy that flows through your body. Frankly, I would do the same thing with adults, or high school. There's no difference. It's just how do you approach the different individuals, so it doesn't become a chore and it doesn't become like, let me fix you by doing it. It's you just more move toward it, and you sort of help kind of like relax the body and relax the mind and relax your nervous system, and like I said earlier on, when you do it and you learn the benefits of it, then you kind of tend to do it on your own, and you can see, like, after we went with the students throughout the different art pieces and talked a lot about it, I was like, everybody take a deep breath. And they just remember just from a few minutes ago, and they came back to themselves, and we can continue again, The other part of it is when, all that happened is run it out, let it just like, that I just let everybody run around, like just exercise it out, let it flow through you, and then come back again and sort of re-regulate again. Young kids do it naturally. You don't have to tell them to do it. You just need to sort of give them some space to do it. When you try to bottle them up, then it's when, the energy and the mind and the dyslexia sort of gets really ramped up. But adults tend to sort of bottle it up and sort of be a little bit more uptight about it, and well, I'm not going to take a deep breath right now. Well, why not? I'm not going to, let me hide so nobody can tell that I'm absolutely stressed out, Well, that's not really helpful. Everybody know, or you at least, it's not helpful to you. So just relax, and the more we relax, the more everything flows, and and it comes back to center. So
that was great. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to shift gears a bit to a question about dyslexia and fine motor skills delays, which often can be dysgraphia, but could be other unspecified motor skills. When you have a child like that who's so creative, but they struggle with those fine motor skills, is there something you can do to help them still express their creativity?
Well, it's, as you said, it's a really big umbrella, and every child is different, right? So what we tend to do when we design spaces like the Schwab Learning Center is to make sure that we're being immensely sensitive to all the senses. Some individuals love stimulation. So as you can see in my studio, there's so much visual stimulation because it helps me kind of regulate. I'm actually not that comfortable in empty spaces. There's just, so much that my mind is running. So when I in my space, everything on the wall, I can write on the walls, there's art, there's ideas, there's stimulation, and helps me regulate. Other people like super quiet spaces. You know, some people are very sensitive to sound or to being, looked at. Some people are very sensitive to smell, right? So I found that when we find the individual sort of what stimulates them or what creates a lot of physical and mental and sound and smell stimulation, is to sort of acknowledge it and embrace it, So back to this question with the student, if you know that the child needs to be more in a quiet space because that helps them regulate, then finding those moments and those modalities that help them to support their differences. When as I kind of work with my dyslexia and try to regulate it and try to figure out how to come to center, is I realize that, instead of stopping it, is I start to move with it. I start to dance with it, because then the contrast wasn't so strong and I'm able to sort of dance with it. And if I dance with it, I can regulate it in a lot more intuitive way for myself, So few different ways, but again, I think everybody is different, and talking about the individual child and what is some of their challenges can be more specifically focused for their needs, right?
Right, and ways that they enjoy expressing their creativity, even if it's not with writing or drawing or something, movement, like you said. So several people asked questions about college and careers and moving into adulthood. And so earlier we talked a little bit about some of the things that, dyslexics are uniquely good at, a whole variety of them. So how do those translate for you into potential majors or kind of career opportunities that dyslexics should be thinking about?
Again, I think that the question is rooted in dyslexia, not in the person. Dyslexia is just the way your mind works. If you love to dance, move toward dancing. If you love to design or create spaces, create spaces. If you get your personal astonishment by, thinking about engineering, engineer, and that's an indication of where your mind thrives, right? So there isn't a specific major, I would say, that dyslexic are really good at. Most of us, as far as I went through some of the educational for myself, is that I start to find ways that I was very good at. I was very good at thinking outside the box. Whenever I try to get a job, I realized that, well, the way they were trying to solve it, that didn't work for me. I could think outside of it, but I was maybe just starting my career, so I didn't have really the opportunity to shape it. So I decided to become an entrepreneur. And guess what? A lot of dyslexic end up finding their own path in many industries, because they tend to do it differently. So one of the things is to embrace that. But it all goes back to the person, like what gives you joy? It's and if you follow that, then you'll realize that is a good place to sort of find it in other places. I would have never imagined that I would end up where I'm at today. It wasn't my major to get here. I first started in computers in the 80s. And then I was really interested in the idea of communication, because I couldn't really write this as well as I can speak. So I was like, okay, how do I communicate in visuals? How do I use that as a visual language? And then I realized that I can do certain things with that very well, but I needed others to do other parts. So I started to say, okay, my friend Dave is a great illustrator. And my friend, Susan is a great writer. So I was like, hey, and I can definitely get clients to do projects. So then I brought everybody together, and then I worked with them. And before you know it, you kind of dance with your skills. And 30 years later, you're reinventing brands and reinventing spaces and rebranding organizations. But it's the same thing, I really just started sort of at one place, and it led me through the entrepreneurial mindset and the curiosity and the mindset of making. I think dyslexic are very good and making things when we figure out where we thrive. So what do you like to make? And Other folks like to consume, and that's where they get their fulfillment. But for me, it's like I love to manifest and create things, and because I can see them, and I can see them before they come alive, and then I kind of know where it needs to go. I couldn't always explain it to you, but I've learned that to trust my gut and my dyslexia to move toward it, and then to readjust and to re-navigate, to readjust. So, what career is good for dyslexics? Any career, any career that gives you, that interests you and pulls you toward it, I would probably say what career is good for dyslexic is anything that makes you feel great. What career to stay away from is things that don't make you feel great, that you work too hard to try to just be average, because it's, we have to do some of it. I have a ton of friends that became writers at Dyslexics because they love to tell stories. They have something to say, not because they're caught in the mechanics of language or of writing. Writing is a tool to express an idea. What idea do you have to express? So really find what you love to express, and then the rest would follow if you just go down river with it. You'll be surprised how quickly it becomes clear. And the other thing is, don't try to arrive. As parents, we tell our children, well, how are you going to make a living? I'm alive. Making a living, I'm already living. It doesn't, if you have, a joy in your heart and you follow your bliss, the rest always follows. It's only when you try to force something that's not part of the inner spirit that you find the discord, right? What makes you less ease, right? Disease, like less ease. It's not easy. It doesn't flow. It's not natural. So you want to find a place where the flow of things become natural and becomes more, right? And when it becomes more, then the universe and everything you do kind of comes to it, because who doesn't want to dance with that, So find something you love to do, and one of the pieces in the art shows that we had, and I designed with a lot of intentions is, if it moves you, dance with it, move toward it, and build a language for yourself toward that, and find the process and the relationship to do more of it, and you don't have to be dyslexic to do that. That's part of the beauty of being a human, at least from my lens,
Yeah. Okay, beautiful. Love all that. All of us in the audience are like, yes, love it. Let's see. I think that people were asking a little bit about how can we prepare our teenagers for a world where not everyone is going to understand their differences, and where not all their workplaces might be suited for them. And in many ways, you might just say, well, you keep trying till you find that place where, it works for you. But how do you, in your own work, try to raise awareness with employers and with adults in the world about acceptance and the benefits of all of these things?
It's really, there's no one way to answer your question there, because I think that it's a life pursuit. My thing is, I've learned that so when I was a child, I was raised with a lot of dyslexic. The dyslexia was, I was lazy, I was stupid, I would never mount to much. I remember one of my early grade teachers said, all he needs is a pillow and he falls asleep. What a sweet boy, but not that bright. And that's part of the dyslexia stigma, is the shame, and when you have somebody like a parent, a guardian, a teacher, somebody that sees that gift, then you start to change an inner narrative. Where we're trying to get to is a place that you have, you stand tall, you have confidence, and dyslexic or not, you can just approach the world with that, So I've learned over the years to tell people that I'm dyslexic, and that's the gift of it. I almost want you to re-ask me the question in a different way, because I think it's so specific to answer it.
I mean, I hear you. I think that one of the things that's related is if you could speak directly to a child with dyslexia or ADHD or other differences, twice exceptionality right now, what would you most want to convey to them? Because I think that's the same message that you would want to convey to the whole world.
Yeah, it's really simple. You're part of a group of individuals that are have superpowers. These are superheroes that have changed pretty much every industry around the world, as you know. And maybe people without dyslexia, can walk, can read linearly, but us with dyslexia, we leap, we fly. So welcome to the club. I mean, it may take a little bit to realize how you're going to fly and how you're going to sort of spread your wings, but you were born with the gift of seeing through things, above things, below things, all at the same time, and find things that are not related and find beautiful relationship between them. So, congrats. I mean, who doesn't want to be dyslexic? I mean, really, think about it. I mean, half my staff is like, God, I wish I was dyslexic, because the few things I can't do, you overcome in ways, but the things I can do, not everybody can do them, You're in an amazing company of people that invented from the light bulb to the automobile to the iPhone to, on and on and on. So when you learn that, then all of a sudden it's like you kind of realize whoa, that's a pretty amazing thing, and as I said, you learn how to dance with it, you learn how to build your confidence, you learn how to know that reading and writing can sometimes be challenging, but seeing the I read a story, I right away dive past the sentence into the world, into the under meaning, into the emotional content of what the author or the content is trying to say. It's you're opening a door to a whole universe of possibility that the sentence is just the key, and it's just sort of the, so as a dyslexic, I think that and looking for the child, what gives you that passion? He's like, I just want to do more of it. Yeah, then you feed it, and you feed it dyslexia, and then you just reinvent it all, So, and when you realize that it's a gift, and you realize that you're in a company of these amazing individuals, the story is different now. You're never going to look about it the same, Then it's like, then somebody tells you can't read it, it's like, well, okay, whatever. I invented the iPhone. What do you want from, it's like, so yeah, like I said, ask me the question in different ways, because everybody has a different place with it and where they're at. And it's always been, for me, a lifelong pursuit. I've continued to become open about it and find my gift of it, and realize that as a dyslexic, everything is negotiable. So instead of trying to resist that, when I read, I see through everything. Is sometimes I'm like, I can see through everything, and then I choose the things I want to kind of see through, because I negotiate it all, yeah.
That was beautiful. I love it. Okay, I think we're going to move right now to the night of audience questions. Callie and Yael, do you have any that you want to jump in with while I look them over quickly?
Sure. I'm looking through all of them myself. How do you support bilingual children with dyslexia? I've had teachers suggest putting one language on the back burner and focus on one, but that's not really an option if he wants to be able to communicate with all of his grandparents, but I don't want to overload him.
So I was born in Israel. I'm dyslexic in Hebrew and in English. So I think that languages are just another medium of communication to different groups, right? When you know, a language, it's, you know, most people say, oh, you're also dyslexic in, you know, dyslexic in Hebrew. It's hard for me to read in Hebrew. It's hard for me to read in English, you know, I mean, I take the information, you know, the same way. Often it just needed to sort of explain, often, you know, with my family, different generations, they come with different sort of understanding of learning modalities, different age groups. So, you know, I remember with some of, you know, my grandparents have passed, but I remember before that, really explaining to them that I just see the world in a very different way. My grandfather was an entrepreneur, and you know, and he could totally understand that, you know, as a dyslexic, I can solve problems in different ways, and that he was very much relate to it. That I relate to people from a very different place than maybe my other siblings and relatives. So often it's to find a kind of gift of it and express it so it's accepted, you know. I'm not sure I'm answering your question on that, Yael, but I don't find differences between languages and dyslexia. It's the same, you know. But different cultures have different tolerance to it, right?
I remember you telling us
Sorry.
about how you found language something that's negotiable, and I love that story.
I was asking more
Um,
of if we should agree with teachers who say, put one of the languages that your child speaks, or we're Israeli also. If we should put one language on the back burner in favor of another one. And I don't know if I agree with that teaching approach. I see where it comes from to kind of make his life a little simpler. But in the long term, I feel like that maybe would put him at a disadvantage.
yeah.
Yeah, and Gil, I would just add, I think I know there are a few people on the call whose families are bilingual and they would love their children to be bilingual, but they do get this advice that that's part of what is keeping the child from either learning to speak or learning to read, or, you know, and I just wonder, yeah, do you have any thoughts on that? Like how parents should think about those choices?
I don't know if it has anything to do with dyslexia, and that's not my expertise, but what I can tell you is that depends on the age, right? I think that sometimes when the child is quite young and you have multiple languages, and you have obviously your you know, your prominent language, and then if you're learning a second language like I have, it can be very difficult. Over time, it becomes easier and it flows better, and then all of a sudden you have double gifts, right? So it really depends on the individual and how it's embraced. I don't know that trying to not have a second language, if that's something part of the family structure and individual, that it's something I would avoid. I don't know that there's difference to me between the dyslexia mind and languages, you know. So you know, it's hard for me to say more about that. Besides that, I'm dyslexic regardless of the language, you know. It's just the way my mind works, and I would say it's up to the individual. But I personally, but I'm not, you know, again, not my expertise, but I personally would not hold a child back because it's easier, because I think that often that's what reinforces that there's something wrong, and there's nothing wrong, you know. So at least from my perspective, right?
And I'm going to put a link in the chat to something from understood.org, which I think we have found in general has been a good resource on these topics. So I think we can throw that into the chat.
Yeah, from the point of
Great
view
organization.
of dyslexia tutoring, when you're working on the interventions that you might be doing, especially when your child's very young, to help them learn how to read, like work on phonemic awareness. I think it is important not to be mixing languages when you're doing that will slow the process down. So it might depend what stage your child is in. They may be, if you've moved on past that, you're no longer, worried about or working on reading intervention strategies, and you're looking more at accommodations, and you're thinking about all your strengths and you're older, then I think that should be a time when you could easily then start to look at incorporating another language. Just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah.
I love this question here. I think it'll be a challenging one. So some neurodivergent people don't like the term superpower because they don't want to take away from some of the real challenges that they may face in a neuronormative culture. So what are your thoughts on that?
So it doesn't mean that you don't have challenges. It just means that you're not your challenges. And I think that there's a difference for me about that. Dyslexia didn't happen to me. I was born with it. I'm not trying to overcome it. I'm trying to have a relationship with it as I get to know myself. And I can understand that maybe superpowers and and that's very respectful. You know, it's all about inclusiveness and making sure that you meet the person where they're at and what suits them to feel their strengths. So for me, it's more around the idea when we talk about superpower. It's not that I'm a superhero. I'm like, it's that I'm not only focusing about what I can't do. And, you know, label it as you wish, or frankly, maybe don't label it at all, but make sure that the dialogue and the behavior and the unspoken gesture toward that individual are full of all of it, you know, and it's not always about the challenges and the struggles, you know, that there's more of a balance at school, at home, and everywhere in between, that the person can feel their full strength, their full gift, and their challenges, you know. You don't have to be dyslexic to have issues. You know, frankly, I think people with every modality has a lot of different challenges, but we don't walk around saying, "Well, he can't play basketball. He's a," you know, like it's really how we see the individual and how we support them. I love the idea that we try to find what makes where's your strength, and spend more time about your strength than about your weaknesses. Because if you come from that place that you look at the strength, then it's a lot easier to overcome your differences, you know, because you know where your power is and you know what tools you have to do and how to feel your best self. And then it's a lot easier to deal with things that are more challenging when you have that confidence and you bring that to the table and you can use them to overcome some of the differences. So, you know, but everybody is different, like I said, and I'm only dyslexic and this is only my experience. And everybody goes about it differently. So if superpower turns you off, then stay away from it. Find a different word or a different way to embrace the whole person. How do we deal with that?
That's great.
Okay.
What do you recommend to do? Okay, so here's another one. What do you recommend to do with a kid in public school who's in 7th grade who keeps getting the message from his peers and maybe his community that dyslexia is bad? Did that happen to you in school, and how did you handle
that? It happened to me at school, and maybe a little bit because of my age and because at the time of education and the lack of awareness about what dyslexia or learning differences were, it was very challenging. You know, it was very challenging. And now as an adult, I wouldn't have changed a thing because it taught me to work hard. It taught me to find things that I was good at. And I think that's part of what my parents and some of the better teachers that were able to see the gifts brought to the table, and celebrate that. You know, it's people are going to tell you all sorts of different things in life, and you can't, you know, you can't change what they're going to say. You can only change how you're going to interpret that and how you're going to sit with it. So, you know, I think it's a good opportunity, at least from my perspective, to have a conversations about your personal strength and know that sometimes people are mean and sometimes people are, you know, they don't understand and they come at you in ways that are hurtful. And how do you deal with that? You know, and that gives you the tools later on in life to make those choices or to stay away from those individuals. But, you know, but if at least at the same time, maybe you can do something that's that they say, but they can see you doing other things at school that that gives you, you know, your talent, that can help change the conversation. You know, I always found that having an ally or finding a student that I was really close to over the years really gave me sort of community, and the teachers, so I didn't feel alone. That was also very helpful to me in being part of a group, or I was involved in sports or in the art program or in the theater program, that there was other places in school that I did have others support and others communities, or program outside of school that sort of gave me some sense of empowerment and community,
And you touched on this a little bit just then, but somebody specifically said they have a 16-year-old who doesn't know anyone else who's dyslexic or twice exceptional, and they recently left public school to homeschool. And how do we help these people find their community? How do they find other dyslexics? And how can they do that?
Go to my podcast and listen to stories of people around the world talking about dyslexia. You mentioned Jamie Oliver and so many others. Check out their program. Check out their stories. Check out their podcasts. Check out their documentaries. Get involved, or have your child get involved in realizing that so many people out there are dyslexic. Community doesn't have to be in my neighborhood, although there's a ton of community of dyslexics and neurodiverse people that are doing amazing things. So I think it's really, Eye to Eye is a great organization. I mean, there is so much out there these days that when we were children were not available. I would say, let them know that they're not alone, and finding those stories, participating, come to these great talks we're having, and really realize that the world is greater than the moment they're living today. And when they hear these stories of others, it allows them to find ways to realize that all of us have struggled. So they're not struggling and they're only one in isolation. And some stories and tools about how to embrace it. And when you realize that you are, as I said earlier, in a company of amazing people, and some students tell you, "Oh, your dyslexia can't mount too much," you can tell them that the phone they're using to text you was designed by a dyslexic. What are you going to do about that? Or that the athlete that you love and they're top of their game are dyslexic. So it's I think that when those stories come out and you realize it, it's hard for people. Then when somebody tells me you're dyslexic and you can't read, okay, it doesn't necessarily goes as it used to, because I've learned and understood so much. It doesn't go that deep anymore, because it's just like, it doesn't really, when you're young, it really matters. But as you grow a little bit and you get to your teens and you hear about these stories and you understand that you're the gift of it, then it gives you a tool to cope with it and to deal with others' misunderstandings of what really is going on. So there's so much out there these days that it's just awesome. So any other thoughts, any other questions?
Well, I was just going to say on that one, I put in the chat, like, I was just so touched by what you said about, like, where do you get your personal astonishment? And I thought, for a 16-year-old, that's a great way to think about it, is where is that child finding that joy and that astonishment or that excitement, and then lean into those activities as a way to make connections if they're homeschooled. So I'm putting that one in quotes, like, on my wall now, personal astonishment.
Yeah, it's part of what gives you joy, and then when you find it, just embrace it, homeschool or not. It's when you find it as a child, as an adult, it's like you just want to do more of it. It just feels good, and isn't that enough? If you love to put your fingers in the soil and plant a seed and water it and see it grow, and it gives you the joy of life. I mean, what else do we want? And of course, making a living is so important, but then you realize that you become an amazing, beautiful. You paint with plants. You become a gardener. I mean, whatever. It's like all these different things that are just like, makes it so much more colorful to find those things and then to go toward them.
you had mentioned family, and family in different generations feeling differently about dyslexia. There were a couple questions right after that about, someone says that her sister acts like talking about it is a taboo. She will often say, my daughter isn't dyslexic and she will be fine. She thinks it's an extremely negative label, and she won't talk about her own children possibly having it. And other people say their partner is not understanding the strengths and challenges of dyslexia. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about that, to be honest with you, because I think that that is part of the problem. You know, when you look at your child and you tell them, no, you don't have it. It's not about having it. It's just the way we are, right? It's like, you know, telling if you are blind, then try harder to see. And that child, even if you don't say it, that child feels and sees that embarrassment and shame in the parents. And you know, the label, and that is what I think a lot of folks with dyslexia and other learning differences, then they have to overcome that. You know, and all they want to do is to have their, you know, parent, family, teachers see them in with the gift that they have, you know. And I think it's unfortunate because, you know, it's, you are who you are. And as you get older, you realize that I don't need them to approve who I am. You know, it's often it's in the eyes of that person that the issue lies. You know, why is that person embarrassed that I'm dyslexic? Or why is that person trying to deny the fact that I don't label me dyslexic or not? It's the way my mind works. But why is that person going to say, you know, you're not that, and you can get over that? And unfortunate, you know. And I've talked to many parents, and some, you know, some see it this way. It's like, oh, because they don't amount to much. You know, I don't know. I would say go fetch. You know, it's just like, really? Is that what we are? I mean, so to me, it's just like, you know, it's unfortunate, and it's the education on that person. You know, goes back to that individual to sort of look at it and say, well, I wish it was different. Don't we all? You know, but it's not. And the world is the way it is, and you're born with the gifts you have, and either you embrace them or you try to fight them. And how is it working for you if you're finding them? Are you thriving? Are you content? Are you, you know, are you bright everywhere you can be? And if the answer is, you know, no, then you're dealing with what it's not. And when you're dealing with what it's not, you're making more what it's not. And then the conversation about how empty is it versus how full it is, you know? So it's just a perception. And you know, you have to meet the individuals where they are, right? It's always trying to find you know, the silver lining and work through it, you know. But directly to what you said, I find that to be a very challenging thing when a parent does not see the individual with all the potential, you know. So
well, I mentioned in the chat that this is such a common experience that comes up in our group, right? Parents not being on the same page, or how do you manage relationship with your own parents or the grandparents, or so that's why we are hosting that event on February 13th, because it's such navigating relationships like this can be really, really tricky. So
very tricky.
I want people to know they are not alone in that journey.
Oh no, yeah. Absolutely.
Gil, I'm personally curious if you wouldn't mind sharing an example. I love how you described using dyslexic design thinking and how you come up with things that are, you know, a different perspective and way of solving problems. I don't know if you have an example. I'm really curious of how that thinking led to a different solution than what sort of linear thinking might have led to. I don't know if it's in a project you worked on or.
Yeah, usually, you know, every project I work on, I think has an aspect of it, because I try to, and it's kind of like maybe a little jumping off the last question, is like, I always try to find is what is the problem? Because usually what you consider to be your weakness is your strength. You just don't know it yet, and you don't understand it quite yet. But when you realize that I'm putting more effort to hide, to deny the gift of dyslexia, all that effort going into making something that's not. So when I work with clients, often we're trying to figure out, where is the discord in what we're trying to do? Why is it not happening? I remember earlier on, we worked very early on launching the Patrón tequila brand. And I remember talking to the team, and they looked at the bottle, and nobody used to have a corky kind of chunky. If you guys know Patrón tequila, the bottle is very small and this. And I went to the bar, and I brought a sample to talk to the bartender and to do kind of like Dyslexic Design Thinking, figure out boots on the ground, like, what do you think about this? And the first thing the bartender said, oh my God, this bottle is horrible. I was like, why? Well, because it doesn't fit in the well. So I would have to put it on a back counter. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And it says, if it's a top shelf product and you put it on top shelf, it's so small, you're not getting a lot of visibility. And I said, what'd you put out there? And I took a picture. And what I realized is that when you put a bottle on the back counter, everybody asks you, what is that bottle? And when you put a small bottle compared to big bottles, because the shelf was so loud, all of a sudden, like, what is that corky bottle there? And then we went back to the team at Patrón, and we said, instead of changing the bottle to be bigger, I think we should embrace the bottle as it is. And they're like, why? And I was like, because you can't put it in the well. You can't hide it. And it's exactly, it's like when the business will become, bigger and we'll get more market share, we'll change our bottle. And we realized that actually what they thought was their problem was actually what we needed to embrace. So often we kind of tend to look at where it's not working because you're putting so much effort toward that. And how do we change the energy toward accept it and bring it on, and all of a sudden things start to flow, and start to become what they are, so you're not dyslexic. How is that working for you? You are dyslexic. Oh my God, what are we going to do with it? It's the same thing. It's the same stick. It depends which side you hold it on. So no, we're talking about dyslexia. No, you're talking about what dyslexia is not. And if you go to the other side of the stick, dyslexia is. It's the same conversation, but it's either half empty or half full. Do you turn it into a problem or you turn it into the solution? And I think to your question, that's something that anything you do, you can look at it like, what are you focusing on? And if you just sort of lean a little bit to the other side of it, all of a sudden it opens up. And when it does, then it almost starts to tell you what it's supposed to be, with Patrón, we embraced it. And then the audience embraced it. And we embraced the fact that it was handmade. The bottles were handmade. The process was handmade. The relationship with the farm and the plants and the community in Jalisco, Mexico was part of the value of the product. So all of a sudden we understood what a patron was. Somebody that loves their community, that loves their heritage, that understand that it's not about just turning a dollar. It's really about a value system that is through and through everything you do. And when you get clear about that, of course you can put that bottle in the well. It deserves to be on the counter. It deserves to be celebrated because it comes from a place of appreciation of generation of heritage and stories, and all of a sudden you have so much to tell about it, So I think that anything that any project we do, Schwab Learning Center, exactly the same example. It's not a learning, it's a facility to learn how to work with your dyslexia, but it's about innovation, it's about ideation. How do you figure out how to take your dyslexia and make it a place that you are learning how to be in an innovation lab for dyslexics, then everybody wants to go, everybody wants to be a part of it, so it's really looking at the brightness of that and sort of feeding it, so.
I love that. And I love the parallel to how dyslexics should see themselves and how you solve these problems. I love that perspective. Abby, do you want to?
Right.
Our last question.
Yep. One last question for you, which is, what is next for you in terms of art exhibitions, creative projects that will continue to build understanding and appreciation for neurodivergence?
Yes. So we just closed a beautiful show, the Dyslexia Dictionary, which you actually can check it online. All the artists recorded videos of the work and of their intention. Every artist chose a word to redefine their dyslexia with a full description. And to make sure it's inclusive, they all recorded conversations and dialogues about it, as well as the art pieces and website that they do. So please go check it out online. You can find all of it on our website. We are continuing the Dear Dyslexia postcard projects, which we want to invite all of you and all your children's, and we're extending it nationwide and around the world. We're going to continue to post as those postcards continue to arrive. We're going to continue to post it to the exhibition online. So you'll see your work part of this global community of kids of all ages. So you don't have to be, age is not defined as, a child. I think there's people from different ages that are participating in it. And we're definitely looking to bring it to a physical space throughout the year. So we're super excited about that. And the Inside Out project and Dyslexia Beautiful Mind, we were part of a community that did that project in London, in the Design Museum. And we're working right now with different individual around the US and abroad to bring it to San Francisco in later this year as well. So definitely keep your eye on that project as well. Our podcasts are continuing. We release one just about every month. We have some great podcasts that already came out this year and a lot more coming up. So just amazing conversation with dyslexic from different background, different interests, and just always super inspiring for me and hopefully for the audience as well. Yeah, we're as a good dyslexic, there's plenty going on. Sometimes too much for everybody else, but I just can't get enough of it. So yeah, so a lot is happening.
That's great. Thank you so much. I actually posted the link to the postcard project in the chat. I'm excited for my kids to do those postcards and send them in to you. So I hope everyone on the call does that as well. It's a really exciting project. So thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to read you
Absolutely.
a comment that someone posted. This is the first time I have listened to an adult with dyslexia. Till now, it's been years of negative connotations. You have transformed my views and how I interact with my child. Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. Beautiful. See, now you can go back. That's the thing about it. As soon as you sort of like figure out that that's like reading and writing, great, amazing, bright, brilliant children, and embracing it, then it's only the beginning. I mean, I can't wait to see what all these amazing kids will do. And so cool to have everybody here today. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for sharing your amazing perspectives with everyone. We're getting tons of things in the chat about you rock, and this was amazing. You changed my perspective. So we really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
So good. You're welcome.
I'm
My pleasure.
going to say thanks to everyone for coming, and I'm going to stop recording now, but what a pleasure and a delight. And it's been so wonderful to focus on what we can find joyful in our children and not just the things that they struggle with. That so much of the world wants us to focus on. So thank you.